Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tawana. Thanks for being here. Today I wanted to make a video on the topic of boundaries. I feel like everybody talks about boundaries. I set this boundary, my boundaries, my boundaries, which is great. I'm all for boundaries, but I feel like we don't talk about what happens after we set the boundary with someone, how difficult it is to maintain the boundary, the steps involved in actually having effective boundary work in your relationships with others. So let's chat. So first of all, let's start with what are boundaries. I would define boundaries as personal guidelines, instructions, nuances that a person teaches others in how they treat them for whatever reason they have themselves. Okay, kind of complicated. Let me reword that. I feel like boundaries are guidelines, instructions, limitations, basically a map that one provides to others to teach them how to treat them. Yes, I like that. Tell me how you would define boundaries below. But yeah, those are boundaries, just basically a set of guiding principles, instructions that you give someone. It could be verbally, it could be non-verbally, in just how they should approach you, how they should interact with you, how they should treat you. And so personally, I found that there are 3 different areas in effective boundary work to actually have people respect your boundaries and stick to them during the course of your entire relationships. So there's less overstepping, less crossing a boundary, less something occurring and then you want to set a boundary with someone. So let's really talk about those steps. First of all, there is the step of setting the boundary with someone. So you set a boundary in many different ways. Usually, I like to verbally communicate the boundary, but oftentimes we're not always able to verbally communicate a boundary with someone. So we have to physically show someone with or nonverbal cues and actions how to treat us. So this could look, for example, like becoming less accessible and less available. So maybe you don't accept certain FaceTime calls, or you don't accept certain calls that aren't scheduled, or just whatever you want to put up to make yourself less accessible to others. So that's that. You set the boundary. You let that person know that this is where I can meet you. This is as much as I can do. This is my expectation of you. This is da da da. This is, you map it out. You tell it to them. You act it out to them. So they're aware. So the boundary needs to be set, communicated. Both parties understand what's happening here. After that, I've found that this is probably the most, it's getting harder at this stage. I wouldn't say it's the most difficult spot to be in boundary work, but the second stage is sticking to the boundaries. So there are some times that we will feel guilted and shamed and emotionally manipulated to do things that make other people feel good. This often comes up in a situation with loved ones, so friends, family, things like that. Usually what starts happening is when you set a boundary with someone and they realize that the boundary is set, then sometimes people may try to, sometimes for whatever reason, in their defense, this can kind of look like, okay, this person is changing. Like, I've known them as this way for all this time, and then now they're just suddenly this way. So the normal human reaction to that is, okay, I'm kind of gonna start to be concerned. Now, some people may question what's going on, and some people may react in a more manipulative way, unbeknownst to themselves. So they're now guilting you for doing what is best for you, and they don't even know why you're doing that, or they're just looking at it from their perspective. So, complicated way to say that not everyone will meet your boundaries with acceptance. So the difficulty here is sticking to your boundary anyway. And this is going to be really, really difficult because, one, you're used to a certain kind of behavior. You're used to exhibiting a certain kind of behavior. If we're supposed to use the example of accessibility, let's just say you're used to being accessible to this person. And then when you set the boundary, not only do they have to become used to the new normal, you also have to become used to embodying the new normal. And so you have to do your own work on sticking to the boundaries that you set, and you also have to hold others accountable to sticking to the boundary that you set with them as well. And if that looks like, sometimes that may look like continuing to not answer phone calls if you don't feel available to do it, or if you don't feel energetically or emotionally open enough to deal with someone's energy. Whatever your reason, it's going to involve you making the tough decision to stick to your truth anyway, even if people don't understand it, even if people are trying to emotionally manipulate you with guilt, with shame. You stick to your boundary anyway. That's challenging. The third step in boundary work for me, this is not the easiest step. This is enforcing repercussions when your boundaries are crossed. Are you prepared to enforce the repercussions when your boundaries are crossed? Because I feel like people will test you. People definitely will test you, but how ready are you? How prepared are you to enforce a boundary to the extreme? Not to the extreme, that sounds so emperor-like. Now I think of things in tarot archetypes because I'm dealing with tarot so much. Check out the other tarot videos on this channel, but it's very iron fist, ironclad. But yeah, I feel like there's some amount of iron fist, ironclad that is involved in boundary work, because you need to be okay with the place where we actually enforce repercussions because people choose to violate the boundary that you set. So this can look like deciding to end a relationship. This can look like deciding to create space in a relationship. Even more, if you even already had space, this can look like not coming into not sharing physical energy with someone, just refusing to be around people. Yeah, this can look like a lot of tough things, but you have to always be prepared for that, because the worst thing you can do is set a boundary. Set a boundary with someone, have them challenge you on that boundary. You correct whatever is going on, and have them repeatedly challenge you on something that you set up as a guideline for you to remain as your best self. After a while, it becomes now a matter of what you need to do to prioritize your peace. And there's going to come a point where you have to be okay with, okay, this may not be something that this person is capable of, understanding and respecting my boundary, and as such, I may need to walk away from this. So, last step for me is, I always like to talk, if I'm talking to friends about boundaries and things like that, I'm always asking, are you prepared for the repercussions if your boundaries are violated? Like, do you love yourself enough to do that? Do you love yourself enough to stand by the standards you set for your best self, for your self-preservation, for your self-love? Like, are you prepared to go to the extreme for you? So, That's what I like to think of boundary work as in its entirety, outside of just setting a boundary with someone. And I hope this video was helpful. Let me know in the comments how you guys set and follow through on your boundaries so that you guys ensure that behaviors are changed and you don't just check people randomly, because then you'll just be doing a lot of checking, and then that's a depletion of your energy source, not the other person's. So I hope this video was insightful for you. Talk to me below. I love when you guys talk to me below and tell me what's going on. And thank you for your like, share, subscribes. Remember to like this video